In this video I'm going to compare the new Leatherman Wave Alpha with the best-selling Leatherman Wave Plus, and there are some great new features on the Alpha as we shall see, but is it worth the extra money? I'm also going to compare the Alpha with Leatherman's most advanced and most premium multi-tool, the Leatherman ARC. Okay, let's start with the pricing because it's worth keeping this in mind as we compare everything else. The Alpha has a list price of $200 or £230 and comes in three colours. The one I bought here is Cascadia Green, and there's also an Obsidian Black and a Canyonland Orange. The Wave Plus needs no introduction. It's Leatherman's bestseller and currently lists at $120 or £130. And then we have the ARC, Leatherman's flagship multi-tool, which is listed at $250 or £260. And what might appear to be relatively high prices in the UK actually reflects our 20% purchase tax and general import costs from the US. Either way though, as you can see, there is a big jump from the Wave to the Alpha, but not such a leap from the Alpha to the ARC. There is no pocket clip or sheath included with the Alpha, but a quick release pocket clip is sold separately that fits both the Wave Plus and the Alpha. This is one I already own for my Wave Plus and costs $10 or £7, and it also comes with a lanyard ring. And Leatherman have just released a new pocket clip with the Alpha in mind, which I've also bought to compare. And it's this one here, and this is available in four finishes, this one being the matte silver, and this one costs $15 or £14, which compared to the original does seem a bit pricey. Now, out of the two, I actually prefer the original one on the Alpha. I think it works better with the contoured scales, whereas the new one, to me at least, looks too plain. Although I do think the new one actually looks really good on the Wave Plus, which I wasn't really expecting. Weirdly though, there is an awful lot of play with the pocket clip on the Alpha, which isn't the case with the Wave Plus, and that is with both clips. Not great at all, and I'm surprised Leatherman have actually allowed this. And when it comes to the ARC, you do get a pocket clip supplied and fitted, but to remove this one you'll need a Torx driver, so you might argue the quick release option on the Wave Plus and Alpha has the advantage when it comes to handling comfort, because sometimes, depending on what you're doing, the clip can dig into your hand. The scales on the Alpha are a nice departure for Leatherman. They are G10 and milled to this contour design, which I think looks really good, and it also offers a really good level of comfort. In fact, out of all three tools, I found the Alpha to be the most comfortable, followed by the Wave Plus and then the ARC, where the comfort is compromised by the externally accessible tools. The scales on the Alpha are also more insulating than the plain steel and warmer in the hand, which I think will be a useful benefit in colder conditions. In terms of size, the Alpha is about the same length as the Wave Plus at around 100mm or 4 inches, and the ARC, as you can see, is just a little bit longer. And the Alpha is thicker than the other two by about 3mm thanks to the G10 scales, and that does mean the Alpha won't fit in the medium-sized sheath, whereas the Wave Plus will. The Alpha needs the larger size. And in terms of width, the Alpha is about the same as the ARC, whereas the Wave Plus is a bit wider thanks to the protruding blade thumb slots. And when it comes to weight, the Alpha is 235 grams, the Wave Plus is 240 and the ARC is 245, although for a true like-for-like comparison, you'll need to add 5 grams for a pocket clip to the Wave Plus and the Alpha, making them all pretty much the same weight, give or take 5 grams. The architecture of the Wave Alpha unsurprisingly mirrors that of the Wave Plus, which means we have 4 main tools which are externally accessible, and the remaining tools are internal to the handles, which require the handles to be opened for access. And both tools also share the same proven lock-in mechanisms, which consists of liner locks on the main tools and this push lock for the internal tools. The ARC though uses a very different magnetic architecture referred to as free series technology, using a magnetic tool closure, which means friction is no longer required to hold everything in place, and unless you consistently work with metal filings, this magnetic approach works brilliantly well. In addition, all the tools in the ARC, with the exception of the pliers, are externally accessible, and unlike the Wave Plus and Alpha, which rely on nail nicks to give access to the individual tools, the ARC allows you to fan out the available tools with the press of a thumb, and then you simply select the one you need, and you can do this even with gloves on. The ARC also has a very effective single lock-in mechanism which works across all the tools, and uniquely everything here can be accessed single-handedly. Let's first then have a look at the Alpha's 4 externally accessible tools, and these can all be accessed with one hand if needed, with the same being true of the ARC, whereas with the Wave Plus just 2 of the external tools allow for single-handed access, with the other 2 requiring the use of a fingernail. Starting with the main blade, the Alpha uses a super premium magna-cut steel, which helps to explain the relatively high cost of this tool. CPM magna-cut is highly desirable and normally only found on high-end knives. It combines superb edge retention, toughness and corrosion resistance, but can still be sharpened relatively easily, and that makes it unique amongst knife steels and also makes it very expensive. This blade also comes with a black DLC coating, which I imagine in this case is just for visual appeal, and it does stand out. The ARC also has a magna-cut blade, being the first to feature one on any multi-tool. The Wave Plus though uses a much more basic and lower cost 420 high carbon stainless steel, which will need regular sharpening, which with this steel is easy to do. Looking at the blade profiles, they're all a bit different as you can see, but all to me seem very usable. If you look at the length of the cutting edge, the Alpha appears to be about the same as the Wave Plus. However, when you factor in the thumb stud, it reduces the available cutting edge for most cutting tasks on the Alpha, giving the Wave Plus an advantage when it comes to usable blade length. If you compare the Alpha with the ARC, the Alpha cutting edge is actually longer than the ARC, whether factoring in the thumb studs or not. And putting the 3 blades side by side, it seems the more you pay, the less blade length you get, which is even more pronounced if you factor in the thumb stud limitations, as you can see here. The next tool is the pull cut saw, an essential tool in this selection, and you can see the Wave Plus and the Alpha saws are the same, whereas the ARC again is slightly shorter. Then we have the file. All have a diamond file on one side and a crosscut on the other. The crosscut files are all a bit different, as you can see here, the most aggressive being the ARC, followed by the Alpha, and then the Wave Plus. And the ARC file this time is actually noticeably longer than the other 2. Scissors are the 4th externally accessible tool on the Alpha, and I'm a big fan of these. If we compare them to the ARC, where they are also externally accessible, the ones on the Alpha are much larger. Both do cut really well, and the main benefit of those on the Alpha is the increased leverage, making tougher cutting tasks that bit easier, along with a longer cutting edge, so cutting can be a bit quicker too. The scissors on the Wave are by contrast accessed internally, and as you can see they are much smaller in comparison. They do still work well though. And that means the Wave Plus has an external tool which is not present on the Alpha or the ARC, and that is this serrated blade, a blade which excels when it comes to cutting more fibrous materials like rope. And if you want a serrated blade, then the Wave Plus is the only option in this lineup. Looking at the pliers, the Alpha has the same plier head as the Wave Plus, a practical needle nose design with replaceable hard wire cutters, and they work really well, although the ones on the ARC are much more substantial. A notable achievement considering the size of the multi-tools are so similar, although I have noticed they don't open quite as wide. The remainder of the tools are internal on the Alpha and the Wave Plus, but they are external on the ARC, which allows for quicker and easier access. Running through the tools, we have a can opener on the Alpha, which is the same as the one on the Wave Plus, and this design will also open bottles and double up as a package opener, and it also features a wire stripper as part of the tool. The ARC has a different can opener design. It's a push forward type often seen on Swiss Army knives, but without their screwdriver end, and it has to be said this tool is simply not as useful as the one on the Wave Plus and the Alpha, and to me is a strange range departure. Then we have Leatherman's desirable flat bit driver, which includes a double-ended flat and a Phillips bit, and this one is the same as the one we see on the Wave Plus. The ARC has one too with a slightly different design, but it does the same job. Then we have the large flathead screwdriver scraper pry bar, which is always good to see, and again this is the same as the one in the Wave Plus. There is also one in the ARC which has the addition of a bottle opener and is a bit more substantial too. Then we have the double-ended eyeglass screwdriver, which again is the same as the one we see on the Wave Plus, and the ARC again has a slightly different design, but it works the same. And then on the Alpha we have an awl or a reamer, always a great tool to have, and unfortunately a tool which is missing on the Wave Plus, that space being taken up by those smaller scissors. The ARC also has an awl or reamer, but with a different design. Both have a sharpened edge, but the one on the Alpha is longer with a more piercing point and an angled edge, and includes a sewing eye, which I think could be useful, although some might say it creates a weak point. In comparison, the one on the ARC has a straight edge, is shorter and looks more adept as a scraper. Both are worth having, although my preference here would be for the one on the Alpha, particularly for marking and for hole making. The Alpha has a fold-out lanyard attachment, whereas the Wave Plus has a hidden lanyard loop built in just here, and the ARC has a lanyard hole as part of the pocket clip. And strangely, the Alpha misses out on the ruler markings we've become familiar with on the Wave Plus, which is an unfortunate loss, although the ARC doesn't have any ruler markings either. And finally, the Alpha and the Wave Plus don't get this very useful hammer end, which we see on the ARC, and bashing either end of the Alpha or the Wave Plus is not going to end well. Okay, so where does all of that leave us? Well, firstly, if money is tight, just go for the Wave Plus. It is for sure the best value in this lineup, and there is a reason this is Leatherman's best-selling multi-tool. And don't forget, with the Wave Plus you get the benefit of the serrated blade and those ruler markings. But if money is less tight, what does that extra $80, or in the case of the UK £100, buy you if you decide to upgrade to the Alpha? Well, for a start you get that Magna Cut blade, and in fact I would say the best blade of all three tools. And if this is the only blade you carry, that might be reason enough. You do also get the best scissors and the best awl. It's also the most comfortable in the hand, and I think it looks really nice too. And in fact this is the one I would choose. That is, if the ARC didn't exist. And that's where the problem is for the Alpha, because for just $50 or £30 more you could buy the ARC instead. In fact, if you factor in the new pocket clip for a more accurate like-for-like comparison, the difference is now only $35 or just £15. So if you can afford the Alpha, you can also afford the ARC. So then, how does the ARC and the Alpha directly compare? Well, the ARC has better pliers, a hammer and a better file, and the Alpha has a better main blade, better scissors, better comfort in the hand, and a better can opener tool and all. And if it was down to just these elements, the Alpha would in fact be my winner. But the real difference here, and the real Achilles heel for the Alpha when compared to the ARC, comes down to the handling. The ARC 3 Series technology, combined with the full set of externally accessible tools and a super smooth locking system, makes the ARC a joy to use. It's quicker, easier and smoother, and you can access everything with just one hand. And if you've ever been up a ladder hanging on with one hand whilst trying to work on something with the other, you will appreciate just how useful that can be. This difference in handling is significant and definitely worth the relatively small extra cost, and therefore the ARC wins. So where does that leave the Alpha? Well, my conclusion is that Leatherman have got the Alpha pricing wrong. I think the price point should be nearer to the halfway point between the Wave Plus and the ARC, so more like $185 or £195, creating a bigger leap to the ARC. And if the cost of the Magna Cut blade doesn't allow for that, I would suggest swapping to a less exotic but still premium steel like S35VN. That to me makes sense, giving the Alpha a clear mid-market position and taking it out of direct competition with Leatherman's flagship, so it can take its place as the perfect upgrade to the Wave Plus, which it is. Okay, I hope that's been useful. If it has, please consider subscribing to the channel. It really does help, and do let me know your thoughts on the Alpha in the comments below. And if you missed my full review on the Leatherman ARC, I will put that one right here. But for now, thank you as always for watching, and I hope you can join me for the next one.